Okay. Good morning, everyone, or hello. I know people are calling in from all over. I'm Catherine Barrett with O'Reilly Media. I want to thank you for joining us for today's webcast, iPhone Forensics Demonstration. It's presented by Jonathan Zdziarski, one of the original hackers of the iPhone and the author of iPhone Open Application Development. Before we start, I want to remind you that you can resize your screen image by toggling the actual size fit to screen box in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. If you're disconnected for any reason, you can log in and join the webcast again. We've muted the telephone lines to reduce the background noise during the presentation. You can submit your questions via chat, and Jonathan will answer as many of them as he can. The chat button is located next to the actual size toggle box in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. You may want to minimize the chat window or drag it to the side during the presentation so it's not a distraction. And now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Jonathan. Please allow a few moments while we make the transition. Okay, there we go.
Great, excellent. Maybe I can get this chat window to stay down this time.
Okay, and you may
hi
want
everyone.
to speak up. Good.
Can you hear me okay, Catherine?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
All right, great. Thanks for attending this. I wanted to turn this into a more technical-oriented discussion as opposed to the last webcast that we had, which was more high-level in terms of development. The recent popularity of the iPhone has created a need by many to be able to perform lawful forensic examination of the device, and I found that the iPhone hacking community that is working on unlocking and jailbreaking and software development, surprisingly, has a lot of similarities in terms of the basic needs in terms of getting into the device. And the techniques that are used, some of which are destructive, I've also come to find that there are several non-destructive techniques that make it a very useful community to tap into for performing these kinds of forensics. And so I've put together right now we're up to 28 pages now, iPhone and iPod Touch forensics manual. And I've made this available freely to law enforcement. And if you're interested in a copy, all you need to do is email me from your law enforcement address, a .gov or a state address, just something that's verifiable. And I'll send you this manual back with all of the links to the various toolkit payloads and whatnot that you'll need. I'm not today going to go into extremely deep detail because a lot of the details that you'll likely be curious about by the end of this are all covered in the manual. What I will show you is some of the basic high-level tools that we're going to use, and we're actually going to break into a device and obtain the raw disk today. I've already seen concerns coming up about, how you feel about installing tools on a device just to perform forensic analysis. And so I'll just get right into it and start out by explaining how the iPhone is laid out on a technical level. Apple needed the ability to deliver very easy updates to the user without blowing away their music and whatnot. And so they've split up the iPhone into two separate partitions. The first partition is a 300 meg system partition, and this partition by default is mounted read-only. So no data should normally get written to this partition. It remains in a factory state until it's jailbroken by the user. The second partition is the user data partition, and this partition is the one that we're actually interested in. This partition is what houses all of the users' email databases, all of their pictures, anything that goes onto the device, including just basic configuration files, gets written to the second partition. And so what our goal was in putting together a forensic toolkit was to create something that was capable of installing onto the iPhone without destroying the evidence. In other words, without touching the second partition. And so everything you're going to see here installs onto the root system partition. And basically the approach we're going to take here, there are several different techniques that have been used to jailbreak the iPhone. The technique that I've chosen for today's demonstration and subsequently in the manual is what I consider to be the best practice for today, which is to convince the iPhone to boot an unsigned RAM disk. This RAM disk is a RAM disk that's prepared by the software that we're going to be using today. You can also create a custom RAM disk at your leisure. And essentially what we're going to do is we send this RAM disk and load it into the memory, the RAM of the iPhone, and then we instruct the iPhone to boot the RAM disk out of this portion of the memory that we've uploaded it into. From there, I've created a very basic toolkit payload. And what this is a collection of various open source tools that we're going to need to recover the raw disk image. OpenSSH, DD, Netcat, a few other tools are in this payload, which gets installed onto the root partition of the iPhone as the RAM disk is booted. And then from there, the iPhone reboots and brings up the SSH, which is what allows us to go in and fetch the disk image. Once we've got the disk image, there are some pretty interesting things that we can do with it. Now, I'll get into those as we get there. But I'll just get started here. And the tools that we're going to use today, we're going to bring up iTunes, as you can see, and you've got the phone recognized and paired. There is an open source tool named, well, it's not open source yet, but it will be soon, named iLiberty. It's a free tool that you can download. And what I like about iLiberty is that it implements this technique in a very clean and easy-to-use way. And I've got a slightly modified version of iLiberty, because by default, iLiberty installs what's called the installer application, which is a third-party community software installer. And in doing so, that actually writes to the user partition. We didn't want to do that. So I've modified iLiberty and provided a special payload, and you'll have access to those through the manual. It basically skips over the installer installation user partition to make it a... So I've modified iLiberty and provided a special payload, and you'll have access to those. I'm getting a terrible echo, Catherine. Do you hear that?
Yes, someone came in unmuted. It happens when we get a lot of people dialing in at once, so I muted them.
Okay. So anyhow, this is the iLiberty tool on a Mac, and we've loaded this up. Again, it says installer here, but what's actually happening is we're going to create a custom payload, and I've already prepared one that we're going to use today, and this again is up on the repository, which will be provided with this manual. And the Forensics Toolkit, as I said, is just a very basic toolkit consisting of SSH and whatnot. I'm going to basically select custom payload. I go to this toolkit, I browse. It seems that easy. And then you click the little Free My iPhone here. You know, the great thing is you don't have to sit here and hack on the phone to get it to do what you want it to do, because these tools make it so easy. So I'm going to show you real quick using the photo booth, and you can see now why I'm not in law enforcement. I'm much too ugly to be in law enforcement. And this is, it's a little reversed, but you can see that the device has booted this RAM disk. And now it's rebooting, and at this point it's going to be booting into the iLiberty payload distribution tool. It's essentially going to be uploading the custom payload that's built into the Forensics Toolkit. And this takes just a second. You can't really read it because it's reversed there for you, but it says installing Forensics Toolkit. At this point, the toolkit is being installed onto the root partition. Nothing's getting written to the user space, which is where the evidence is. You're generating SSH keys. It's going to reset the password to Alpine, which is the factory default, just in case the user had already jailbroken their device. And then within a few seconds, it's going to reboot back.